Los Angeles and Seoul, two of the world's major cities, both with populations of over 10 million. LA, often ranked one of the world's most diverse cities, is home to people from over 140 countries and speaking 224 different languages where there is no ethnic majority. On the other hand, Korea and Seoul are often considered to be some of the most ethnically homogeneous places in the world, with 96% ethnic Koreans and 99.9% Korean-speaking residents. With such a large disparity in diversity, what difference in experience do multicultural people within these two major cities face, and how do their perspectives on multiculturalism differ?
We, Mia Elliott and Ashley Liao, along with CI's Alliance for Multicultural Women, have conducted a number of interviews within the greater Los Angeles and Seoul Incheon areas in order to learn more about this question.
Multiculturalism is defined as coexistence of diverse cultures, where culture includes racial, religious, or cultural groups.
Along with investigating multiculturalism within these broad areas of LA and Seoul, we further focus in on multiculturalism within our own Chadwick communities of PV and CI.
My name is Desh. I'm from Los Angeles, my family. My dad is from Sri Lanka and my mom is white. She's Italian.
Justice Davis. Culture identifies black male.
I'm Virginia Sears, American and Irish.
I'm Queena, and I'm Jessica. I am Korean American. I also grew up with a Hispanic nanny in Guatemala, and so I speak 3 languages and identify with.
I'm Mexican American.
Well, my name is Austin Zartman. I'm from the Midwest, from Indianapolis. I identify as a Caucasian American male.
His Mexican culture and I guess American. That's it.
It's a melting pot here in LA, so I think for myself, I've always found just a variety of people of my culture in different places.
I think it's diverse, but it's still like really segregated. So there's a lot of different kinds of people here, but we're all very sectioned off into neighborhoods. Like there's Thai Town, Little Armenia. I'm from the Valley, which is very like, there's a lot of Korean communities and white communities and Latino communities, but they're all very sectioned off.
If you're Korean, white, whatever, you can go anywhere in LA and be welcome because this is such a diverse place.
My Korean American, yes.
Yeah, I would say so. I think Mexican Americans, I think we have different cities here in LA where you can go and there's different monuments and different things like that that represent our culture.
I've since like my family's like 3rd generation Italian, I just kind of feel like I'm white. That side on it's just white, and so in that way there's like a lot of white people. But there's not very many Sri Lankans just in general. It's a really small island, so there's like a very small community.
Yeah, there's like a whole street dedicated to my culture.
I think that it's definitely more diverse. Just coming from an area where, you know, you grow up and pretty much everybody looks about the same. LA just has so many different types of people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the country, different parts of the world.
Oh, it's definitely more. I mean, people from all over the world come to LA. LA attracts a lot of people, and I like living in LA. I get to meet new people every day, people like you, people, you know, around this campus in particular.
Wherever you turn, it's a huge melting pot. But when I was in college, I went to a very white college, and so when I first started there, I felt isolated in a sense because I didn't have much Asian American community.
Alright, so I live in Orange County and my culture is not represented there, so then I come out to Los Angeles and I work. And yeah, it's more culturally diverse in Los Angeles than it is in Orange County.
I think it depends on what cultures they are. Like certain cultures have a really strong support system. Because I'm a social worker, and so there's like a lot of cultural agencies and like community-based organizations that are trying to make people feel more welcome and like included in this community in Los Angeles. But there's some that don't necessarily have the resources to do that.
There are a lot of support systems here in Los Angeles, especially within the school district. There's linguistic support within the district, just speaking within, Los Angeles Unified.
Being part of a larger organization would help. Like if you go to USC, there are definitely cultural specific student groups that exist. I know that I have friends in, but if I were to move out to LA and just have to find that on my own, I think that'd probably be a little bit more difficult.
My name is Abraham, and I identify as African American. Our mission here is to showcase African American history, art, and culture in California, specifically in Los Angeles.
My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. La Plaza de Cultura y Artes is a museum and cultural center here in downtown LA, right across from Olvera Street, the birthplace of the city. And we're dedicated to telling the little known stories and untold stories about Mexicans, Mexican Americans. My parents Mexican, my brothers and sisters Mexican American. Within my family, I have a brother who married an African American. I have a son who married an Asian American. I have a son who married an Anglo American. I have children that are Blaxican or Afro-Latinx. We have one granddaughter who is super mixed with African American, Asian American, Native American, white, and Mexican. So I would have to say that Los Angeles is the most diverse community, the most diverse region in the world. I think there's over 170 languages spoken in LA Unified School District. You'll find pockets of, there's Thai Town, Little Tokyo, Chinatown, of course, Little Armenia, all these small communities where people of similar culture gather together, but now they're being mixed as well.
My name is Fabiana Bello, and I am Mexican American Italian. If you simply walk out towards downtown or even towards even Olvera, plenty of times I've heard more than a couple languages spoken, and that is an experience that I rarely really encounter, especially when I come over all the way from Fullerton. And it's not just downtown LA too. I'll go around East LA or in other parts around Hollywood, and I tend to hear like at least a couple languages too. So I want to say that it definitely feels very diversified. And when I listen to other people speak about their experiences where they're from too, whether it's from other parts of the US or other parts of the country, they're just kind of like, wow, there's a lot of different cultures and communities in a small space. That's sort of.
Hey, my name is Ken Nakagawa. I'm a Nisei Japanese American, I guess you'd say.
My name is Bob Moriguchi. And I classify myself as Japanese American, secondary as Asian American.
The museum was really founded to tell the story of the Japanese American experience during the World War II and being segregated and sent to camps and things like that. We wanted that story to be told. And of course, all cultures have some kind of story, they want to know. And there's so many of these cultures. That's why we're, called diversity in America. Okay. So if you want to know about diversity in America, one of the ways you do is you come here, you study the Japanese American experience, you learn our experience, and that'll help you learn about diversity.
So this is the largest concentration of Japanese Americans in the United States, but we're a small minority within minorities. And we're so scattered that it's hard to get representation. So I don't think we're noticed. except when you come to Little Tokyo.
You know, there's not a single niece or nephew that I have that's ever married a Japanese. You know, they're all mixed. So I don't know what problems they have, but I think, you know, we're so well integrated, you know, that they don't have too many problems that I know of.
지금 수원의 대학교를 다니고 있어요.
저는 경기도 사는 고등학교.
그런 건 아니고 그냥 한국 사람.
이름이 좀 특이해요. 많이 이름이 주봉주에서 앞뒤로 똑같은 성을 들어가거든요. 그리고 나이는 올해 50 됐어요. 50대가 돼서 그런 부분 좀 많이 들었어요. 그러니까 간혹 가다가 제가 이게 외국인 분들 이렇게 태우고 그분들이 이렇게 좀 어려운 부분에 같이 해결을 준 적도 있거든요. 근데
비교해봤을 때는 많이 다양한 편은 아닌 것 같아요.
지금은 이제 우리 한국으로 직업을 가지러 오는 사람들이 많으니까 예전에 비해서는 그래도 인종이 좀 다양해진 것 같아요.
근데 한국 사람들이 별로 집안 따지고 올라가네.
우리 엄마가
저기 계단 많지?
다 다양하다고 생각하지 않는 것 같아요.
저희 집 같은 경우는 이제 제 동생이 필리핀 외국 여자분한테 막 영어 배우기도 하고 서로 대화도 하고 같이 밥을 먹기도 하고.
인천 서구 같은 경우는 외국인들이 굉장히 많이 살잖아요. 그래서 그쪽 서구 쪽에 가서 이렇게 보게 되면은 문화적인 다양성이 좀 많다고 하는데 인천의 문화 다양성 하면은 저는 동남아에 이렇게 한정돼 있다고 생각해요.
서울은 상당히 다양하죠. 부산에 있는 것보다는 갈 것도 엄청나게 많고 문화시설도 잘 돼 있고 연극이나 이런 것도 해화동 있으니까 괜찮은 것 같아요. 문화가 그렇게 다양하다고 생각하지는 않아요. 제 생각에는 그만 아직까지는 한국이라는 곳이 한국적인 그런 부분을 추구하는 게 더 많으니까 아직까지는 조금은 아주 작다고 생각해요. 그런 부분. 아무래도 일단은 아직까지는 우리나라에서 조금 우리보다는 조금은 이문화를 할까? 문화가 틀리잖아요, 맞죠? 문화라는 거는 언어도 포함되겠지만 어느 정도의 사람의 이목구미라든지 이런 얼굴 형태나 언어라든지 이런 게 틀리면
프로테이즈로 따지면은 아마 받아들이는 정도는 고작해야 한 50% 미만? 저는 그렇게 생각해요. 그런 분들이 얘기하실 때 우리나라에서 너무 지나치게 이렇게 차별화 받는 거, 그리고 피부색이 아니어도 그분은 사회적 지위도 있고 굉장히 높으신 분임에도 불구하고 우리나라에서는 일단은 피부색에서부터 먼저 차별을 두잖아요. 네. 그래서 피부색에서 차별을 두는 부분에 있어가지고 힘들다는 얘기를 많이 했는데 많이 개방이 되었다 하더라도 한 50% 미만인 것 같아요. 얘기를 해보면.
아무래도 언어 문제가 첫 번째로 있을 거고, 그다음에 한국 사람들 중에서도 좀 차별하시는 분들이 아무래도 아예 없진 않으시니까 그래서 좀 불편하지 않을까 그렇게 생각하고 있어요. 그래서 저희 가정 입장에서는 되게 관계는 같이 영어도 배우고 같이 식사하고 즐기는 좋은 점이 가지고 있다고 생각하는데 다른 분들은 정확하게 잘 모르겠어요.
생김새가 다르다 보니까 먼저 선입견 가지고
좀 놀리는 게 주변 사람들이 놀리는 게 심한 것 같아요. 전에 비해서는 많이 받아들이는데 솔직히 아직까지는 뒤에서는 좀 많이 받아들이지 못하고 있는 게 있는 것 같아요.
또 의외로 그런 부분을 생각지 점점 안 하고 있는 부분에 대해서는 굉장히 좋은 쪽으로 생각해요. 옛날하고 다르게 고작 10년 그 사이에 이 인식이 좀 많이 좋아진 것 같아요.
수는 좀 많이 그래도 발전된 것 같아요. TV에 다른 문화에 해당되는 사람들이 많이 나와서 조금은 낫지만 그래도 아직까지는 그 어른끼리는 괜찮은데 자식을 낳는다든지 그런 부분에서는 아직까지는 미흡한 것 같아요. 한국이랑 훨씬.
So, my name is Jennifer. I'm from France. I've been working for the Multicultural Museum now for 2 years, almost. I've been living in Korea for 5 years.
My name is Geert and I'm from the Netherlands actually. I work here as a tour guide. I don't really know what I identify as culturally. A white man, I suppose.
So the main goal of this museum is to reduce the bridge between foreigners and Korean people, because Korea was a very closed country for a long time. It just opened in the late 90s. And so regarding foreigners, they don't have a lot of knowledge about other people's culture. And so this museum was made to teach Koreans about other countries' culture.
I think on paper it's to teach Korean, especially Korean young kids, a little bit more about multicultural, what it is and how different cultures can meet and connect with each other. But it sometimes feels like we're more of an experience-based museum where kids just come to play and they kind of learn that foreigners are not super scary. The younger generation seems to be way more open just because they travel more and they have more money to go outside in the world. So I think they're more opening up to the idea of something multicultural.
I think that Korea is not that diverse, but at the same time, it is starting to be more and more diverse. And I think that in 10, maybe 20 years, it will be a multicultural culture.
Seoul is pretty diverse. I suppose it depends on where you go. But since I'm from the Netherlands and we are very proud of our multicultural society, I don't think Korea has advanced very far as it comes to creating a place, especially where minorities can be, like people from Islam. Like they're nice comparatively to if you're from a Western country, but if you're from another Asian country, if you're Chinese, for example, and you don't speak the language, then it's going to be really difficult.
If you're white coming from the States or Great Britain and stuff, you won't have a difficult experience in Korea. It will be the best country ever. But then when you're coming from other countries like Southeast Asian countries or even African countries, especially if you're male, then it's a whole different experience. Me, from my experience, because I speak Korean and I'm a very open-minded person. I'm always eager to learn about different cultures, so I'm pretty open to everything. I can speak the language, I can communicate with Korean easily. I didn't have that much issues, but with my other male friends, especially African friends, it was a whole different experience for them. A lot of prejudices, people saying that Africa is very poor, like uneducated, blah, 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 blah. But then when I'm talking to my American friends, like white friends or just American friends, it's a whole different experience.
We originally predicted that the Chadwick community in PV would be very culturally diverse. After conducting various interviews, our predictions were proven true. Chadwick and PV does seem to have a pretty diverse multicultural community. However, students feel as though there are ways they could be further represented. Chadwick and PV has a variety of support systems, including affinity groups and culture clubs, to promote multiculturalism and offer a safe space for people with multicultural identities.
Because Chadwick's affinity groups are limited to individuals who identify with that cultural group, people feel comfortable discussing sometimes controversial or uncomfortable issues. Culture groups exist for all students to learn more about and celebrate a culture while gaining a deeper understanding of it. Also, Chadwick makes a strong effort to include multiple cultures and perspectives in their curriculum. Here are some thoughts from Chadwick students on these topics.
My name is Rico Susoko. I'm the Director of Equity and Inclusion at Chadwick School, and I self-identify as an Asian American man, and I also self-identify as a gay man. Affinity group spaces are spaces where folks with a common identifier can come together to reflect and offer support to each other and to dialogue about issues that are important to them within their group.
My name is Elmer Castillo. I'm a junior at Chadwick School, and I'm one of the 3 co-leaders of the Latinx affinity group at Chadwick.
I'm Jasmine Amaral, and I identify as Latina and Hispanic.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Cortez. I am one of the leaders of Latinos Unidos here at Chadwick, and that is an affinity group for all people who identify as Latinx, and I identify as Mexican American.
I think my culture is well represented at Chadwick, especially because we have the opportunity to form things like Latino Culture Club and Latinos Unidos, which is our affinity group. So it gives us a good chance to have other students who identify in the same way come together and be able to talk about representation in media and on campus and different social issues we might be facing.
I am Christy. I identify as Korean American, and me and Austin are one of the leaders of the Asian American Affinity Group.
Yeah, I'm Austin. I identify as Korean American, and I'm a co-leader with Christy.
I feel like Chadwick does a lot to say, like, oh, like, cultural clubs are for everyone, like, anyone can come to anything sort of atmosphere. But because affinity groups are specifically for people of that group, it creates a sort of like a sense of belonging and a place where you won't be scared to, say anything, because chances are people understand where you're coming from. It's more of a safe space to communicate than like we're going to solve this problem.
My name is Harrison Leonards. I identify as an Ashkenazi Jew, and my role in the Jewish Affinity Group is mainly to serve as leader. Well, overall, it's really just a conversation in a regular Jewish Affinity Group meeting where we just kind of chat about our thoughts.
My name is Mia Monica, and I am a Black woman. So I am one of the co-leaders of BSU, along with Duke Lindsay and Kaylin Chase. So the Black Student Union is an affinity group, and we just hope to provide a safe space for Black students at the school so that we're able to talk about certain things that our counters, our peers might not quite understand. But I think BSU really provides a space for Black students to really feel comfortable and to feel at ease with themselves, and also to discuss a lot of relevant issues around the world. Being a part of BSU has been really incredible for me. It's allowed me to feel as if I have a voice within my community and feel more connected to my community, and I've really appreciated the space at school, and so now I'm so happy to be able to provide this space to other people.
So the question was, are there additional ways besides affinity groups to find support around issues of diversity? And I think there's a myriad of ways. One of the main ways is through affinity groups, but also at looking at our curriculum. How are we providing a diverse curriculum? How are we showing multiple perspectives? How are we aligning with our core competency of cultural competency, and providing windows and mirrors for all students, regardless of their identities.
I remember last year in history, we had an entire unit focused on migration, and our case study was migration in Mexico specifically. And for me, who is half Mexican, it was really interesting to get a different perspective on those types of issues and to have it actually be talked about in our curriculum. I thought it was really great to have really valuable in-class discussions and things like that about the content and about what was in our textbook and things like that, because they're real world issues, and it's really cool to see different types of cultures represented in Chadwick's curriculum.
As I mentioned, I identify as an Asian American person, also as a gay person. I see myself reflected several times in the academic curriculum. Whether it's a text, whether it's a classroom discussion, I feel open to talk about my Asian American identity. And I know in specific classes, in particular in the humanities, there are opportunities for people of different racial and ethnic groups to talk about their identifiers.
I do think that my culture is appreciated at Chadwick School, as in very many instances, peers and teachers have gone out of their way to try to talk about it, or even recommend me like books or novels to read and watch. But in terms of the curriculum, I feel like my culture, and in specific Hispanic and Latinx culture, is underrepresented in the curriculum.
I overall feel like we're fairly well represented. There are some topics, especially in global studies too, which I feel like could be a bit controversial for Jewish people, but overall I think we do a pretty decent job of including Jews.
I really appreciate this institution's approach to diversity and thinking about how all of us are responsible for it. I think Chadwick is a very multicultural community. We have an appreciation, if you look at multiculturalism, as an appreciation of multiple cultures,
we do have an appreciation of multiple cultures.
I consider Chadwick a multicultural community because I think there's a lot of opportunities for students of different cultures to come together, and I feel that Chadwick gives us the opportunity to celebrate our own individual cultures on a wide scale. A lot of my friends are from different cultures, and I think that that's something really special about Chadwick.
I have friends of like every race here and multiple religions. There's like a large variety of backgrounds, like economically, racially, ethnically.
I think Chadwick is multicultural to an extent. I think that there are students from so many different places. I mean, we have people who are from China, Korea, India, like Africa. We have exchange students. We have one right now from Cambodia. And so I think Chadwick does a lot to bring different cultures in and bring a lot of different student body into the school.
I definitely think that there are very many cultures represented at Chadwick, but I don't think that it is necessarily equally represented, as if you look around, it's mostly people of very like concentrated Caucasian ethnicity and not necessarily indicative of the population that's actually represented in Southern California, which is higher like concentration of African American and Hispanic people.
I think Chadwick does a great job at accepting all cultures and all identities, but I don't feel like they represent all the cultures. There's certain Asian holidays that aren't necessarily in our winter break season, and so one girl was talking about how Holi, she has to celebrate it even though she's at school, so it's a very hard balance. So we don't get the full experience of our holidays because we don't have the time it takes to celebrate them.
American holidays are quite sort of, I don't know, just like days off for me versus like actual holidays that our family wants to celebrate during school days. So I have to like FaceTime my family while like, I don't know, when it's not even that day because I don't have that day off. It's a little bit inconvenient. It would be nice if we do incorporate that into our curriculum.
I think that Chadwick is fairly lenient as far as holidays go. They give Yom Kippur off for everybody. Rosh Hashanah, I still need to take a day off.
The institution, it ensures that it has representation all around, which is really incredible, and I really appreciate.
CI is much more multicultural than most Korean public schools due to its Western influence, and it has students and faculty representing a wide range of countries. When compared to other international schools, however, CI is relatively less diverse, with about 85% of the student population being ethnically Korean. Support systems are limited but include global language courses in addition to a language of inclusion policy, where students are encouraged to speak English to be inclusive of everyone. From our observations, mostly everyone speaks English in a classroom setting, but Korean students tend to speak Korean amongst themselves or in other social settings.
Hi, my name is Maddie and I'm Australian.
My name is Amina and I'm a Tanzanian American.
My name is Diana Kwan and I identify myself as half Russian and half Korean.
My name is John Yoon and I'm Korean. Yeah.
My name is Daniel Cho and I'm also Korean.
My name is Brian Park and I'm also Korean.
Hi, my name is Erica and I'm Korean.
In some ways, it's multicultural because of the Western influence, but it's pretty Korean. It's really heavily influenced by Korean culture.
I feel like CI is a very multicultural community because it has representatives of over 70 countries in our school. We have a lot of international students and teachers.
I think our school is very diverse as there are so many students and teachers who came from like so many different countries. And so I think many students represent very diverse cultures that they've come from, so I think we're very multicultural.
It's all relative because I know that there are like a lot of other international schools that have like a lot more like foreigners, and so like the Korean population is really high here.
Not very diverse at all. I mean,
for every 10 Koreans, I think there's maybe one foreigner, so it's not very international.
It just isn't. My culture just isn't reflected in CI culture at all.
I feel like Russian culture is not really well represented in Chadwick community because Russians are like the minority of the population. As well as I know, there are only like 4 Russians in upper school and 1 teacher in village school, so I don't really think the curriculum and holidays are really represented in CI.
Not really. I don't think American culture is, but it's kind of different to Australian culture. I think because of the lack of like foreigners, I think that the groups that we form are really strong. So like our friendship groups are really strong. We used to have like counselors and stuff.
Since most of the student body is made up of Koreans, even though it's an international school, I feel like Korean culture really assimilated into our school's culture. Like all of the school events we do sort of relate to school events done in Korea.
Well, compared to Korean schools, like traditional Korean schools, it's like way up there in multiculturalism, but compared to other international schools, I would say not really.
Right.
Because, yeah.
And we try and be more multicultural by celebrating a lot of things. Like at the start of the school year, all the seniors carry out flags and do like a flag ceremony. And it looks nice, but
doesn't mean
it doesn't really mean much.
There is a policy that I know, and it's called the language policy, and it helps and encourages students to speak English to promote inclusion for those who do not speak Korean.
And we have this language of inclusion policy that a lot of people are trying to enforce, but I don't think it's actually working. But I think it's pretty significant for our community because we need to include everyone, right?
Yeah.
I honestly don't think that a lot of people follow that because there are many students who their mother tongue is Korean, so when we're only with Korean students, we tend to speak Korean, but during classes or when there are other foreigners around us, we try to speak English. I think that we should strengthen the language policy more and then give incentive for students to follow the language policy more strictly, because many times the students are not conscious of that they're speaking Korean, but it cannot be intentional, but still it can kind of hurt other foreigners' feelings.
From our interviews in Los Angeles and Seoul, we believe that the Chadwick community's multiculturalism is reflective of its surrounding environments, both physically and socially. Los Angeles attracts and is home to a more diverse group of people ethnically, culturally, and religiously, and the culture of the city itself welcomes diversity and multiculturalism. These populations are reflected in the Chadwick School student population as well. On the other hand, Chadwick International makes strong effort to be multicultural, but simply doesn't have the same ratio of multicultural students due to Seoul and Incheon's limited multicultural population. The fact that Seoul and Incheon centers heavily around Korean culture, traditions, and ideals, rather than being open to foreign influence, permeates throughout the international community Chadwick International aims to promote. While both communities strive for ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity, it's not as easy for Chadwick International to attract and maintain cultural diversity on campus for the aforementioned reasons. We believe that affinity groups similar to the ones that exist at Chadwick School and PV could be beneficial for foreign students in the Chadwick community.
Students we interviewed also suggested a stricter enforcement of the language inclusion policy as a method of increasing multiculturalism. However, this raises the question, to what extent should Chadwick authorities have the right to interfere with students' cultures? The language inclusion policy is something we found particularly interesting at CI. While speaking a common language undoubtedly allows foreigners to feel more included in daily life, to what extent is enforcing a common language in a non-classroom setting, forcing Western cultural assimilation or eroding at Korean students' individual cultures? Similarly, if Korean students get American holidays, for example Thanksgiving, that they don't celebrate off from school, why shouldn't American students at Chadwick School also be given days off for Korean holidays that several students do celebrate? In order to promote a more multicultural community, one must be sure to respect all cultures. These are important questions to be answered before we can definitively find a solution or method to help communities, including our own Chadwick communities, become more multicultural. Through our cross-campus telepresence call, we hope to bring students together in discussion of these questions and the role of multiculturalism in our two communities and spark a dialogue about these important issues.